last bout of crazy productivity for the night. So what I want to do is first we're going to focus on wait, I just had an interesting idea. I want to try something before we get serious. Not bad, but not great. Suppose instead I did okay, still not that good. Suppose I did there we go. Oops. That's what I was looking for. And then you can write and let's see, if I keep that many, that'll be enough. Okay, so getting on to real stuff here. Next thing we need to do is work on the sure to close stuff. So let me take a look at how that gets linked up. That's another thing that's always been controlled from the core side, and we probably want to avoid having some weird thing where we straddle the boundary. So that means that the thing that leads to asking, are you sure you want to close, has to, I don't know, we might end up needing a hook that's like, go to custom layer and ask them if they're okay with closing. And they might answer if they're okay with closing. Yeah, we'll see. Exit 4coder sends an exit signal. So what I need to see is sure to close. Okay. I don't get what all this shit is even about. Who cares if there's a command coroutine in flight? Who cares if... So I guess that's trying to clear the command coroutine so that they can deal with this. Why are we doing init query set? Trying to remove all queries so that there's nothing to see. I don't think it should be possible for view to equal 0 to begin with. So I'm gonna say I don't like very much of what I'm seeing here. But what's happening is we're getting in the input the fact that we're trying to kill. That can happen for a few reasons. It can happen because these are clicked to the little X. It can happen because they hit Alt F4. Or it can happen because from the custom layer they called send exit signal. Once the exit signal has been set, we get a frame where we say that we're trying to kill, and then we enter into this mode where we call view show interactive I act sure to close. This guy right here. That would then, if I look at Bitbucket, I act sure to close would directly tell the models to stop the data model to stop looping like 4coder core model thing has a little flag that says keep playing, and you can. That's the only place in the code base that ever gets set to false is if. Okay, it gets set to false in two places. Right here, if there is no unsaved file, or right over here in this code in bit bucket that I'm looking at on my other screen, where it used to get set to false if there was unsaved files and they still wanted to close, then it would keep playing to false. If this is going to be controlled by the custom layer, then the custom layer has to be able to make a call that isn't send exit signal, but literally kill app. Send exit signal is like the soft one, and kill app is the hard one. And the point would be that you'd only ever call kill app under the circumstance that the user is confirming that they okay. Now the question is, why would I keep send exit signal around necessarily? I mean, does the core do the work for this or at all or not? Because it seems to me like what could happen is we just call a hook. A hook that says, hey, we're trying to close, do whatever you want, but we're not going to keep trying if you don't return a go ahead and close thing. Then if it didn't decide to close immediately because it had whatever reason that it thought it shouldn't close immediately, it could then, for instance, be responsible for launching the "Are you sure you want to close?" dialog. But that "Are you sure you want to close?" dialog has to be able to be activated, which means we end up needing a kill app call on the custom side. So I guess this really comes down to whether or not I'm willing to have a kill app on the custom side, because the send exit signal is correct. The core has the core has to synchronize across all possible reasons that any module might send an exit signal and pipe that all into one responder. Right? That all gets sent to the hook, and the hook then decides if it exits immediately or not. The core, if the hook was not set at all, it would just set the playing equal to 0 manually. The hard kill isn't hard to write. The only concern is that people would call that in their customization, not understanding that it's more dangerous. So I could just give it a really goofy and scary name and put in the docs that you shouldn't call this if you wouldn't want 4coder to close with unsaved changes. You should call send exit signal instead. And that will trigger the hook that has to be a single universal hook that determines what happens when we receive an exit signal. That's so complicated. And what's all this nonsense about command coroutine? Why do we care about command coroutine? I mean, they can just close their command coroutine if they're in the middle of one, right? Maybe not. Maybe we want the core to doctor this more closely than other things. Like hold his hand, and we probably still want the custom layer to someday have complete control over it, though. If the core is going to relinquish control from it any more than it already has, it's going to have to give the custom layer a hard app kill procedure. Once we've crossed that bridge, it becomes, the next question is, do we give a hook for handling the trying to kill thing? Because the trying to kill can originate from send exit signal or from other things. Trying to kill. Whoops. It's hard to say, because like this is being treated as an input thing, but if that's being sent from the exit signal, then that's not really an input thing, is it? Yeah, that's a little bit messed up too. If input trying to kill, where does trying to kill all get operated on? Here we simulate a trying to kill event. Which would be wrong if there is actually new event simulation. What are these events getting used for? Yeah, this is input recording. Yeah, so if that's input recording, then it's just all busted. I should just pull input recording out because it's not even gonna... Okay. Input recording is getting nerfed because it doesn't work. I tried to set up an input recording thing for testing and I was pretty sure it was working. So I went pretty hard into it, but it still ended up having some problems. Alright, so that's about a month and a half to 2 months of work in the beginning of the year that I wasted because I just ended up pulling it all out. But that's what happens every time I try to build a testing system, so I'm not actually that upset. It would have worked if I hadn't realized that I needed to change the 4coder input system anyway. Or if I hadn't have, it would have worked if I hadn't needed to change it, not if I hadn't realized I needed to change it. Realizing I needed to change it is just the thing that forced me to stop working on it, not the thing that doomed it to not work. Alright, so let's see. Oh, sorry, hold on. Does it build now? I think it built last time, right? It built? No. Alright, so now the simulation system is fully pulled out. The next thing I want to do is, I had a whole meta thing going on. Test builder. Yes. Test generator. Yes. Alright, project. Generate. Did I not ever... Generate config parser. What does that mean? Config parser. Oh, I have metacode that does some of that project parsing type stuff. Yeah. Alright, so I never transferred all that nonsense over to here, which is good. Do I have like build tests.bat? Test builder. See how it gets yeah. Alright, are there any other build generate tests? Yep. Okay. So that should actually have been done a while ago, but let me just check how that affects my lines of code. Out of curiosity. Alright. Alright. It wasn't that much code. A few hundred lines. Okay, so what next? Well, I got on that because I was tracking down uses of the variable trying to kill. Okay, so here's the input chunk. Well, for the Win32 layer. We determine if we're trying to kill based on whether the window's being closed or anything. Trying to kill if someone sent the exit signal, then we set trying to kill equal to true, and we get rid of the exit signal. And so, yeah, the core can't tell the difference between trying to kill because of something that the custom layer did and trying to kill because of something invisible that the user did that never went through any of the 4coder code base, right? Like if I close the X, that sends the trying to kill thing. If I hit the call send exit signal, that also sets trying to kill to true, which means if I ever do input recording, I can't do it from there because this current system treats certain events that originated from the custom layer as real events to the platform or to the core. Hey, excuse me. Excuse me. Okay. So, you can even see when I wrote it, I wasn't really happy about it. We'll have to rethink about that at some day, some future day. For now, I think we just want to add to the API the ability to fully close to kill the app completely. So there's send exit signal, and then there's like kill 4ed app always or something like that. And the second one would be the one that actually stops it no matter what. Alternatively, what I could do there's no real way to get around it. One way or the other, they have to be allowed to kill the app anytime they want. So just make it a scary thing to call, so that they know they're only calling it. So they're only ever calling it from spots where they've definitely guarded against it happening surprisingly with file lossage. I think that's the only option. Okay. What if they don't set the hook in their customization? Would I still want to provide a default hook that I know is available no matter what, that you can call into? How would this even look? How would this go? I guess if they don't set the hook, then send exit signal just becomes another kill 4ed process. I guess. Maybe. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff I can do to make this work alright-ish. But the main concern would be if they didn't set their hook and didn't realize that they hadn't set it because it was like some weird thing where they called a function that sets a bunch of defaults, and then they override the default with something they didn't realize wouldn't protect them from accidentally closing and losing progress. I could prevent that if I didn't give them the customization power over this, but I feel like that's the wrong move. Okay. See, what they could do is they could use send exit signal and have their hook automatically say go ahead and exit even though I've detected unsaved changes, because I already did a dialog that told me to do this, and I've set some global flag that said close always. And now when I send the signal again, it won't matter what happens because this close always flag will be there and I will close. This is more work than just calling kill for process without checking. But maybe that's a good thing, but maybe that's a bad thing. It could be a good thing because if it's more work, then it can't happen by accident as easily, thus protecting them from the thing that I'm concerned about. However, it could be a bad thing if it can happen for reasons people don't understand. And then in that case, if they never set the hook, what would happen? What would happen would be that it would be an error on startup if the hook wasn't set at all, and it would shut down immediately. If the hook was set and it was set up in such a way that it would never agree to close or would always close, then that was a failure on their part to program the hook correctly to protect them from closing with changes, with unsaved changes, which isn't great because the core could still go ahead and look at it and be like, well, I see that you have unsaved changes. Are you sure you wanted to close and run a fallback thing when it's suspicious? But that would be annoying if you wrote it correctly and didn't want it to fall back to some nonsense. And if they're trying to protect themselves from screwing it up, and I make it complicated to figure out how to close it, like how to get it to close, then they're less likely, I guess, to actually close it than, but it becomes very easy for them to just write a different hook where it is easy for them to close it, is the thing. I guess the trick would be to make the thing you have to return to close down the thing that you'd be least likely to return without intentionally knowing you were trying to close. If they get themselves in a position where you can't get 4coder to close because of their hook, that's just a bug that they'll figure out how to fix. But if I make it so hard to figure out how to close that it's frustrating for them, maybe they end up with a bug that won't let 4coder close in certain situations, and that's frustrating. I think I'll go with the method I started with. More danger, more easiness. Wait a minute, why are we doing two layers of this at all? Why don't we just have them send the exit signal and call the exit hook, and then... Oh, right. Okay. So what we have right now is already a way to cancel. I guess that's what we actually want to use. So we're going to eliminate the send exit signal nonsense and just from the platform layer, and this is just going to set keep playing to false on the models. This is going away. Alright, since we already have an exit hook, I think the more appropriate thing to do is to use it the way I would have used a trying to close hook. And then we will, and then we will look at trying to close and basically just turn it into a thing that sends the exit signal to the models. And we can eliminate the platform layer's send exit signal. Okay. Okay. So now what we're going to do is let's track down the platform send exit signal. There we go. We'll probably also need to, nope, those all get shared. So the only other thing we'll have to do is here and here track down the send exit signal nonsense. So weird. I still don't even really understand how that works. I don't remember setting it up. So weird. I have to look at that sometime before I ship. Okay. So now we have to work on this hook. So the default framework variables will now include a allow immediate close without checking for changes equals false. And then if allow immediate close without checking for changes, then return 1. Otherwise, return 1. We want to check all buffers for dirty flags. So the way that currently is done is it happens in here, trying to kill, which again, let me see everything that trying to kill does. Trying to kill, trying to kill, trying to kill. Responsive user is trying to kill the application. Yeah, so trying to kill doesn't even wire into the exit hook right now, which I'm going to change. But there is unsaved, animating equals true. Closing the coroutine. We're not going to keep any of this nonsense around. That's all just garbage. Go away. That's ridiculous. Just all of this is dumb. All of it is going away. The only thing I really care about knowing how it works is this part. So here I'm iterating buffers. I can do that from the core from the custom layer pretty easily. Oh, get buffer first. App access all. get buffer next as long as the buffer exists. Get buffer next access all. Okay, so that gives me a way to iterate the buffers one at a time. Then I want to see, because I think this has dirty state. There we go. If the buffer's dirty state equals dirty state unsaved changes, then has unsaved changes equals true. Break. And then we will do if it has unsaved changes, return 0. And we're also going to make a call right here that I will implement in 5 minutes when I get back from a quick bathroom. Okay. So if we have unsaved changes, we want to Alright, so that will launch the UI and return 0. And then we have to implement this. Down here. And this is where I want to implement the new API to make my life easier. So let's get to it a little bit. So I'm going to need the activate Alright, so if they say yes, then what we want to do is set allow to true, and then we send the exit signal like so. If they say no, we do nothing, and we go back to the way things were. If they said save, we will send the exit signal, but before that we're going to call base command save all dirty buffers, and so there we go. And a feature that I couldn't figure out how to implement when I was implementing all this in the core has just fallen into place for the first time. Okay, cool. But that's not enough, because I also need to put this in here. I'll use the same generator for now. When I have changes and I try to close, there are one or more files unsaved changes. Wow. One or more files with unsaved changes. Close anyway. There's the view we care about. There's the handlers we want. Okay. So that should be a good working test of the send exit signal change. Right, and we need to finish this now. So alright, I've changed my mind because I remember the other people are using the exit hook for other things. No. Exit. So the trick just has to be anyone who was using the exit hook for something now needs to run the default hook and check the output, and if the output is a 0, then, or if the output is a 1, then do what they used to do themselves. That's all that has changed. Yeah, okay. That won't be too painful of a transition. The only way that would be painful is if anyone was trying to avoid including all of the 4coder custom default stuff, which I don't think anyone is. Yeah, this creates more problems I have to think about for the future, but for now it's good. Run the exit hook. Alright. These are the only things left that still use the normal hook signature, which is kind of weird. Anyway, yeah. So we're gonna do hook function exit hook exit func. If the exit func does not equal 0, then call the exit func. Then resume playing do not close down. And then the other thing we wanted to do was that. So if anything happens that causes us to be trying to kill the application, we do that. We say, hey, do not keep playing, and run ahead. We say that we're animating so that if they do cancel, then we will run the next frame always. Although that should probably just be something we do here. If we cancel, then we were animating. Show us what happened next, because we probably canceled and switched to something else. Yeah. And then finally at the end, if we're still in that situation where we've decided to not keep playing, we perform the kill out there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if that works. So one danger with all of this is that it starts on yes, so if you hit enter, it will activate the item that you're highlighting, which you maybe don't actually want on these lists, now that I think about it. At least you don't want that to be the thing you're hovering over by default. You probably want no to be the thing you're hovering over by default, which probably just means I should reorder them. You know? So we'll fix that too. There are one or more files with unsaved changes. Close anyway? No. Yes. That closes immediately, basically, which is good. Config test save and kill. Config save and kill. Okay. So it works for me. It's going to cause bugs for anyone who ever did anything, whoever changed their hook to anything else, but I will make sure to make a big fuss about that in the change log, so that they know that they're going to need to call to my default hook even in their hook. And use the return from my hook to determine if their hook would have actually been called. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what that means is that we now need to close. Yeah, we need to just clean up that code that we just based those two things on. So back to lists, we're going to clean some stuff up. We're going to switch to this new API. That's going to look like this. We're going to eliminate the old version. The activation is still the same. These are now fixed shortcut list. Fixed list with shortcuts. That's what I'll call it. There's how we backspace and write a character when we're using a fixed list with shortcuts. When we're using a fixed list with shortcuts, in addition to everything else that we're changing here, we have to change this. So that's gone, though. We need some kind of data structure, or set of data structures, really, that will let us describe a lister fixed shortcut options fixed option with shortcut. Fixed options with shortcut. Yeah. Yeah. In addition to all that, the other thing we're going to need is the generate. Wait, with that we just said we could just set that to 0 if we just, yeah, we got to rejigger some stuff a little bit, but it'll be okay. So now I guess the coolest part of this is figuring out how we're going to stuff that data there. This, and this. Where is that getting stuffed? Right? Right now, I can easily make this thing. It's pretty obvious what this is. This is one of these. String shortcuts characters and a void pointer user data. So that's what each fixed option shortcut looks like. That's what each fixed option with shortcut looks like. Then the next question. Not sure why this would be any different from the fixed list. I could just not have users not submit shortcuts whenever they don't want shortcuts. So why don't we not split our code paths that much? Fixed option. So string description shortcut characters, so this will come with no description at all. Fixed options, there we go. And so these up here, fixed options, oh, where is it? Fixed list. Okay. So that'll go right there. That'll let us separate from that. And then we need an implementation for this. That's going to look an awful lot like what this did, but parameterized. Okay. Application links. Query. Confirm kill. So we need an activation function. Lister activation function type. Activate proc. Lister user data. Options and 32T option count. Okay. Alright, so that's what that does. Now, for the next part, get default handlers. Yes. Not sure why we have that sitting around, honestly. That could just be set to null, right? All of our things, check if they have the handler. So yeah, navigate up, down, backspace will just be set to 0 and then nothing will happen. Perfect. Backspace, we zero it out. So activate will be the activate proc. Refresh will be 0. Right character will be the right character fixed list. Backspace will be 0. We get the view. We say here's the query, the handlers, the lister user data, and the view. Okay, that's almost everything. The only problem we have left is dealing with these options. We have to turn those options into the data that gets stuffed into the lister, basically. So to do that, what we want is, let's look at the generate yes, no, save and close. It's going to basically do a generation pass. The thing I need to know is what happens when I call begin lister integrated. Okay, so it does the following things. It checks if we have a refresh and fails if we don't have one, which will be a problem for us if we're trying to set refresh to 0 so that we don't have any concept of refresh. Speaking of which, why did we think we needed refresh to be non-zero? I think it's just because we call it right there but I'm pretty sure if we look at UI helper, call refresh handler, it still does the check. So it's actually okay for refresh to be 0 as long as we don't go down this code path where we try to call refresh, right? So that's good to know. Then starts UI mode. It sets the UI map, sets the UI command map. Get lister state, grabs the lister state from that view, init the lister state, lister first init, so that would clear it to 0 if we'd already put shit in there, which we shouldn't be doing because we're calling the init lister state right there. So this, I think what we want to say is this is lister integrated refresh callback or something like that. With like a refresh callback. With refresh. Yeah, so something like that seems good because this actually is quite different from what we would want to do. We would want to basically make this a different call that would be with, instead of with refresh handler, it would be begin an integrated lister with a refresh handler. Yeah, okay. And then separately we'll have begin integrated lister with fixed options. And we'll implement that. And that will be allowed to have a refresh handler, but it won't be required to have it, and it will be assumed that and it'll be passed in a set of options, and we will be generating the initial list from that set of options, I guess. We might actually say we want refresh to be ignored anyway. Actually, we will do that. Okay. So let's deal with these build errors. Alright, we'll think about that in a second. Don't care. Don't care. Here we go. There we go. Now we can deal with this shit. Okay. So it's concerned that there's no such thing as begin lister integrated fixed options, but I don't think we actually want there to be something called that. I think that this should be a call directly to begin integrated lister with fixed options. Which means that these need to be promoted, or I should say this needs to be promoted to here. Okay, and so that's what we'll do. Begin integrated lister fit with fixed options. And then we need to pass in the application links, the query string, the lister activation function, I guess we can just pass in the handlers. The user data, options, so that would be the lister fixed option and the option count. Now I don't actually want to rely on an array count, so I'm going to get an option count right here that I can compute by just doing option count equals the size of options divided by the size of options 0. Okay, so that gives me a nice easy way to submit a set of options. I have to get the default handlers and all that stuff still. Although I may make a wrapper for that part of it. Because the big thing that I'm still a little confused about, begin lister, buffer list, begin lister, file system list. Actually, you know what? I know what that's all about. Okay, so that is actually just more of this. Begin integrated lister, buffer list, begin integrated lister file system list, Okay, and all this has to do is get the lister handlers. Lister get default handlers. Handlers dot activate equals the activate function. And I guess, wait, up, down is the same. Let me look at, oh shit, I already wrote all of that much of it? Let me go look at the one that I know I can trust, this one. Activate is activate. Refresh is stays 0, but I'm gonna explicitly write that there so that everyone knows that I meant for it to be that way. This is fix list, right character now, and backspace gets cleared to 0 so that it doesn't do anything. And then view, yeah, okay, and that's all we do for that. And then we're gonna call begin integrated lister with fixed options again. This time the version that takes handlers and does the real work. Options, option count. This means that if you want to override the handlers, you have an easy way of doing that. Although, you know what? I feel like there's actually a better option than all of this, which is I could just write a get handlers for static lister handlers, lister get fixed list handlers. Return those handlers, turn this into, oops, fixed list, there we go. Let me put backspace equals 0 so that everyone knows that's not a bug. And then instead of having this ever, actually, I can just have this. And then those people who are complaining that they don't know how to compile because they can't turn an activate into a handler struct, they can, instead of being worried about that, they can just not even think about it, and instead just do lister handler handlers equals lister get fixed list handlers, set handlers dot activate to activate confirm kill, and then this here is almost good enough to just say that's gonna work. So we can paste it down here, save all, and close. Three options: confirm, close 4coder. There are unsaved changes close anyway, question mark? No, there are one or more buffers with unsaved changes close anyways, question mark. Activate. This right here needs to be the handlers now. This can go to 0, and there's our options. Okay. And then the only remaining question, we don't need this hanging around anymore. Right? We still need that. So that's then finally I want to rename these things. So begin lister sure to kill happens in these three places. I'm going to change this to do GUI sure to kill. Do GUI sure to kill. Do GUI sure to close 4coder. Begin lister. Do GUI sure to close 4coder. Do GUI sure to close 4coder. And now hey, Flying Solomon, welcome to the stream. Yeah, I'm still going. I have a lot of 4coder pep right now. I'm very much getting giddy to get going because the stuff is really coming together now where it's becoming possible to write very high level stuff that makes it's weird when you look at code because it's if you're doing your job right, you're not just making a linear amount of progress, but you're you spend some time working on a low level thing and then you have an abstraction of that and then you build some new higher level structure out of that abstraction and you can keep going and going so that you end up with a point where you can do something like write this much code to describe entirely the layout of a new list, and then this much code to describe its behavior, and then you can just start kicking out all kinds of lists, right? And so I've been it's getting close to the point where I'll be able to really be going. I'm still kind of getting some of those highest level abstractions in place, but I think next weekend, I might not stream for a little while after this because I know I have plans for next weekend. But point is, next time I am streaming anything, the lister stuff will be at a place where I can just have a lot of fun with it rather than working through the drudge work. We're getting past the tear stuff up and build the fundamentals and to the fly through the code and get lots of interesting stuff done on one day part of the process. Alright, so the rest of these are going to fail. Begin integrated lister buffer list. Still getting my naming scheme right. Begin integrated lister file system list. Handlers. Whoops. All right, so oh, I didn't rewrite this part yet, so it's not going to work. I didn't even write the core of the new thing. Okay, so fixed options. Right, I have to write this part next. Okay, so how does this want to work? Basically, some of it's going to look the same as this and other parts will look different, so let's take this as the model to go with. So we're going to need that. That's good. We're going to need that. 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 Okay, we're going to need that. We're going to need that. Okay, some new stuff will have to go right there. We're going to need that. We're going to need that, but we want to add, whoops, we want to add the extra rule that refresh is always 0. We're going to need that. We don't need any of that. And then we do need that. Okay, so what's the thing that has to go up here? This is where we'll do an iteration over the options. and we'll build a list much the way the generate list functions work. Yeah, totally. The API part, you're sitting there slowly, and like you've come up with like, okay, well that's gonna have, okay, well, and I went ahead. I always kind of analyze the system and say, where can I avoid having a sort of awkward in-between status of my layers of API. So my design was basically has at least 3 major tiers depending on how you look at it, but I'm pretty sure that it's at least 3 no matter how you look at it. Well, I don't know. You could look at it as not having any tiers besides just one big tier, or as having 2 tiers if the one tier is the stuff that's directly in the core and the rest is the custom layer stuff. But I think there's at least 3 tiers to this API now, 3 layers to it, and so building up each of those layers takes a while, but by the time you've nearly finished with that 3rd layer, you are getting so much leverage because of how many layers are beneath you. Each layer is like a whole nother ratio upgrade of amount of code to like amount of activity on the screen. And so we're getting close to the end of writing the 3rd layer at this point, and so we're starting to see a lot of that higher productivity stuff happening, which keeps me going for longer, basically. Alright, so when I'm building an options list, I just grab the lister and I start adding items. And that's literally all I have to do. That's right. See, that's why this is so much better, because the first stage of this was the UI API, which was a very slow-going API. To build one UI took a while. Then I built the lister system, which basically lets me build lists like this by calling lister add item over and over again. Now I'm building the 3rd layer on that lets me do like user-built lists in just no code at all, basically. Like, you literally just describe the list and off you go. So I have to do lister add item, because what's happening now is I'm writing the thing that translates from the user's specified list to the layer beneath it, which is the lister's raw item specification thing. So it needs an arena. It needs the lister in question. That we can get from there. And that we can get from there. Okay, the name that goes in there. The name that goes in there will be options I dot string, options I dot status, and then the user data has to somehow contain the rest. Alright, where is lists? There we go. I need to see lister add item. I don't even know what happened just there where I lost it. So yeah, lister add item, the 4th and final thing is the user data pointer. And the tricky part about that is the user data pointer isn't enough bits by itself to contain everything that is left over in the options struct. Basically, the options has a string, a status, shortcut characters, and user data. And the user data really wants to go somewhere where we can see it in here. So the question then is, where does the other part of the options go? If that goes there, how do I remember the shortcut characters when it comes time to process them? So here we are. I could easily loop over the things inside this lister. I have my lister state. I could get to my items and loop them, but they don't store that anywhere. My option node has one user data pointer, and that user data pointer has to be used for the activation function. Begin integrated lister like this one. For instance, this activation function needs the user data to be the user data that was specified right here, not some struct that contains both of these. Now, one trick I could pull so the user data comes back to me there. I'm not so sure what I want to do about this. So I have a couple of options. Let me explain the different options that are going through my head. One is I could make a parallel array that pulls this shit out, and I could store that in a differently allocated block that only exists under these circumstances that I'm using this particular type of list. But I feel like other people who want to build other layers on top of the second layer, on top of the lister layer, may also end up in a situation where they want to store more data per option node than is a part of the main thing here. These all have main purposes: linking it to other nodes in the list, the strings that go out, the strings and the user data pointer that go out to the UI. And the user data there can't just be used for user data directly, because what it really means is the thing the user gets back to tell them what item was selected. But if the thing that they get back to tell them what item was selected is not the thing they put in right here when they were setting the options, right? When they're setting options, they want this user data to become this user data so that it can become this user data right here, right? Which means that this other thing, the shortcut characters, wants to also get stuffed in on this node as user data, but not as the kind of user data that this user data is for. That wants to be a straight channel for passing this through to the other end. So, what do? I'm thinking, what happens when I add an item that is so special that it has to be exactly this big? Why couldn't it maybe be bigger if I wanted more space for stuffing stuff into nodes? So let me take a look at that. So lister add item looks like that, and it allocates a node, fills the stuff, and that's that. So pretty easily what I can do here, and I want to keep the current, so this is where things get a little annoying. Let me make a parameter grid here. So arena is present in all of them. Lister is present in all of them. Okay, I see. So the parameter grid so far is we have param1 string can be either lister pre-alloc string or a string. Param2, which is called status, has the same set of possible types. And then param3 is user data, so and it's always available, but so the next thing that would be different that we want to parameterize on is extra space. And this could either be absent, default to 0, or it can be in 32. Right? So we're going to end up with 8 different versions of this if I do it completely. Alternatives include keep the 4 versions and make people pass zeros right here. And that's the option I will take. So all of these are now returning void pointers. 0 is the handiest of all the numbers. No doubt about it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so if you call this and you don't want any extra space, you can just pass 0 and ignore the return pointer. If you wanted the extra space, don't know how I missed that part. If you want the extra space, you'll be able to get it. So for instance, in this case, the extra space on each part, and I'll probably do this actually. So, for instance, as I was saying, this can do that, and then we can do shortcut string length. Shortcut string length equals string size options I dot. Take me back to here. Shortcut characters. Shortcut char's length. And then mem copy into the extra from shortcut chars. By shortcut char's length. There we go. So that gives us a little way to stuff more information into each node with a variable amount of stuffing per node. And so layers built on top of the lister layer can now stuff information into nodes that they can read out later. And they can count on those to stick around, which they couldn't have done if they were stuffing stuff into the GUI. So it's another feature that the lister layer is providing to make the upper layers even easier to implement. Okay, now we need to get the rest of these things on board. Uh-oh, I know another problem. Hold on, first of all, what's going on there? String size? You don't know string size? Oh, it's stir size. Okay. So once we've done stir size, what are you worried about next after that? You're worried about those parameter types. I know you are. Okay. So, problem is I have char stars, and these only take lister pre-alloc strings and strings. So again, looking at the grid, this will be 9 instead of just 8, which is what 2 to the 3 would have given me 8. This is going to be 3 to the 2, which is going to give me 9 different variations if I do all of them. If I do every possible pairing between pre-alloc strings, strings, and char stars. So I'm not going to. We're just going to say make string slowly right here. And be done with that. Okay. So now I know. Should probably copy that null terminator in there, don't you think? Now I know that I have enough this stuffed. Let's see what else we got to do. Flying Solomon, you do know my string library, huh? Wow. No extra space needs to be stuffed in when we are generating buffer lists or file lists. Wow, after all of this, and it's still this much code, again, after I've gotten everything working, it still takes quite a bit, because I have to figure out what view... Oh, not get active view. I have to figure out what view is relevant, since I'm only passing a view ID in. It's my responsibility at this level to get the view. And then I could fix that by having someone from outside get the view, pass in the view summary, but well, actually, why am I not doing that? Because they probably already had to get the view summary anyway if they have a view ID. There's really no way to get a view ID without having the view summary that it came from. So why these are view ID and not view summaries is a little bit of a mystery. Guess this one I didn't have the view sitting around. Again, not sure why it's passing view ID, but it's fine. I think I'd prefer to pass the view summary into the... Well, hold on, let me just double check. Yeah, those just work that way. So I'm definitely going to be consistent and give these view summaries. Okay. View GUI, view ID, access all, view, okay. And where's the other error? Yeah, in this one I definitely did have to get the view and then give it the view ID. So overall, a win. Now, that just built, didn't it? So there's the refresh for all buffer list and the hot directory file list. And there's the things that begin the begin integrated lister with those refreshers, so that all you have to do is set the activations functions. Confirm kill is the activation function for this guy, who specifies his list just like that and passes it to fixed width option. Wait, with fixed options. Again, with fixed options. I could save one line of code, 2 lines of code if I did that way. I resisted it before. Now I'm going to resist it again. It's not real lines of code that I actually care about. Okay. That would be a bad trade-off in order to reduce line count. Okay, so that's still pretty good though. I mean, you have to create your fixed options like this. And you got to figure out how many of them you have one way or the other, and you got to get your handlers, which is really just a matter of getting this and that. Now I could make a wrapper for this that just lets you pass that to there, so that you don't have to do this step, which might be a nice thing. I've considered it a couple times now. It'd be very easy to write and would just make this code slightly less of a pain in the ass, you know. And the slightly lower level version that sets all the handlers is always available anyway, so it doesn't do anything except add a little bit of granularity to save you extra typing work when you don't need it, I guess. So if I took this and I set lister activate function activate, and then I get the lister handlers by going handlers equals lister get fixed list handlers, and then set handlers dot activate to that, and then called begin integrated lister with fixed options app query string handlers user data options option count view. We would then have these looking like that, which is very nice. Define your list, begin it. That's it. Say how you want to react to each item in your list when they get activated. And that's the whole darn thing. Yeah. So even though this is extra work in some cases, I'm going to pull that out there. Okay. Now we just need to replace this part. This was the thing that was manually responding to yes, no, save characters for the fixed option list before, but now I want to be able to deduce that from the shortcut characters that we set. So to do that, what I have to do is iterate the lister. Yeah, so lister option node equals, give me the state lister options first, while the node does not equal 0, node equals node next. And then for each of those nodes, I can get their extra space by going node plus 1, and then I can say, well, let's treat that as a character pointer. I can say if string has substring, what is it? If has substr, let me look at string.h, has substr, good. So if the hotkeys contains a sequence of bytes that matches whatever the UTF-8 decode of this was, and then we will make a string out of character length. If that happens, then user data equals that node's user data and break. And that can start off as false, and did shortcut key becomes true. There we go. Now the only other thing I have to worry about is I need to make sure that this has a reserve for 0, because I just remembered that if the user data is set to 0, it won't be treated as a clickable item. And while I'm at it, I might as well order these to match the order that they show up on screen, right? Right? config.h, I edit the file, foo_bar_baz, I come over here and say kill that. No, don't kill it. I come over here and I say kill that, and I say save and kill it. Okay, that works. config.h, I edited it again, and I say kill it, and it says there are unsaved changes, and I say yes, kill it with unsaved changes. I pull it up again, it still has that, so I delete it again, I say kill it, and I say, you know what, no, I'll save it first and then kill it. Okay, that works. And suppose I pull up config.h and I put in foo_bar_baz, and then I try to close and it says there are unsaved changes. Close anyway, and I say no, and I say wait, no, I changed my mind, yes, wait, sorry, yes, and then I go, wait, crap, hold on, let me try one other thing. Config.h foo_bar_baz close down, save and close. There we go, perfect. And then I come over here and I'm like config.h reload and save. There we go. So did I get all the Did I get all the if zeros that I added earlier while I was transitioning through that? Looks like I did. So now to implement the are you sure you want to kill a buffer takes this much code. This to define what's in the list, and this to define how to respond to each thing in the list. And are you sure you want to close 4coder takes this much code, which is, you know, pretty decent, I think. Those are some pretty good, I mean, it's reasonable because the amount of work it took to just switch on the result is much higher even than the work it took to list the results, which like is a good sign, I think, because this is sort of unshrinkable amount of code that's involved. So less than half the code is involved in setting up that fixed option list with shortcuts. Now what I want to do is just track down this and put that under framework H. And the other one, where's the other do GUI? Right there. There we go. Perfect. All right. I think that I will wrap that up. That was another 2 hours. Perfect. My internal clock has been really good all week, like for the last 2 days, and I can tell because I always know right when I've hit 2 hours, which is a good sign that you're having a good day, I think, because you're, present enough in the moments of your life to kind of keep track of how many moments it has been. You know what time you've put into it, and you're not like coming to the end of the day and be like, wow, that took way more time than I thought it would, or I couldn't keep myself going for the full 2 hours that I wanted. No, you just hit that 2 hours and you're like, great, I thought it was about time to wrap up. I check, I did hit the 2 hour mark again that I was hoping for, and we have all this to celebrate. All of this is back and working. So the next thing to do, the next big thing to do is to work on the font and theme stuff. Okay, those things are done. Just checking stuff off the list that I've already done now. And then there's that whole thing with the actual end UI mode handling that I want to do more smartly. And revisiting view variables and stuff. Okay, but that's enough for one day. We're getting there. I think next week I will have to do the fonts and themes, recreate those, and then when I'm back in 2 to 3 to 4 weeks-ish, somewhere in that time frame, if I haven't already, we will be able to start implementing new lists that never existed before. But till then, see you later. Bye, folks.